They have.
Yeah.
They should have us, not that.
You are on.
So, good evening. It's the 12th of February. I'm Christy Boudreau, Chair of the Hatfield School Committee, and would like to welcome us as we call to order for our February business meeting. And as I note that we are taping, as we always do every month, we are also tonight, big excitement here, little drum roll, testing out a new AI note-keeping alternative, which will allow everyone to stay engaged in the meeting and hopefully make our minute-taking a very simple endeavor. However, we note that this new system needs all of us so that it can, instead of calling us all speaker 1 or 2 or 3, we need to check in, and so it will learn your voice. So I'm going to ask as we start out tonight, if we could just go down the row and you can state your full name and what your position is, and everybody who's next to a microphone can check in. So, Mr. Sullivan.
Adam Sullivan, school committee member.
Jennifer Maloney, school committee member.
Rebecca Bench, school committee member.
Kathy Engelhart, Vice Chair of the School Committee.
Christy Boudreau, school committee chair.
Connor Driscoll, interim superintendent and principal of Smith Academy.
Melissa Petra, principal of Hatfield Elementary School.
Molly Bremner, Director of Student Services.
So thank you for playing along tonight. We're going to see how it does. But anything that means we don't have to take minutes would be a bonus, right? Mm-hmm. So with that, I'm going to open it up for public comment. We have several guests with us online. Would any of you like to make a comment this evening? There's something in the chat. Can you just double check and see?
That's the AI.
That's the AI helper. Excellent. Okay, so
AI has checked in.
AI has checked in and we're good to go. With that, we'll turn to mission moments if anybody wants to check in and speak to how the mission of Hatfield Education is coming along. Anyone have anything?
I can start. Earlier this week, we had several of last week, not earlier this week. Last week, we had several of our juniors and seniors take part in filming and recording for a radio advertisement. So that should be able to be heard soon on the radio with our student voices, which is great.
Nice. Wonderful. Others?
Well, I'm hoping in an effort to grow enrollment that more of our students will talk about the fun club that we have started. It was something that was started and done pre-pandemic, and then things stopped. So it's been an initiative and a talk about trying to re-bolster them. So we've got 6 of them right now currently, and I'm excited for our after-school clubs.
Are those still open for more students, or is it like we've got our number, we're good to go?
Yes, they are all full.
And then we'll see if it pans out and we want to try it again.
Yeah, April 1st is the deadline for this first session of 8 weeks, and then we'll see where we go after that. I promised that I would do another cooking session because I've had a lot of 4th, 5th, and 6th graders wonder why they couldn't be part of the first, second, and third group. So I will do a cooking club moving forward with them, but hopefully others can go along. And I've reached out to Dr. Driscoll to see if it was possible to see if any of the high school teachers had a talent or hobby that they would love to do our after school club with our elementary school students, again, making that nice bridge between the 2 schools. So fingers crossed, we might get a few.
Great.
Other mission moments?
Well, I forgot about my mission moment until then, but my daughter is in the cooking club and she eats celery now.
Yay!
Wow. That's a
Mission
win.
accomplished.
Right.
So now I eat more celery now too.
Ooh. Keep that in mind if you invite us to dinner. So I had a fun one today. I had the opportunity to go during 8th grade civics class and meet with some of our 8th grade students who wanted to talk about the future of Smith Academy and how students could help get more kids to stay because they love Smith Academy. They want to see it continue to be vibrant. And there's they wanted to know what we're doing to make sure their school remains. So we had a really engaging conversation. And I'm looking forward to seeing their project. that comes next, because it's like, oh, we've got to go do something. So hopefully we will see them here at some point. We'll find out. But it was also good to know, as a good reminder to the public, that we do still teach civics, as is often thought to be gone from the curriculum. So that was good. And they were excited because they got to see the conference room that they've never been in.
Wow.
Yeah, it did not disappoint.
I think we have a mission moment going on right as we speak as well. It's senior night for girls basketball at the Smith Academy. So they celebrate our seniors who it's their last home game of their senior year season. And as part of that, I know that all of the Smith Academy staff were invited and encouraged to go, as well as students from Hatfield Elementary and all students from Smith Academy. So I'm sorry I can't be there tonight, but I'm sure we have a good showing up there in support of them. And our boys' senior night is on Wednesday.
Good to know.
Just a quick almost mission moment. Owen came home from school today very excited to tell me that at Box they played pillow polo, which seems to be a very Hatfield specific thing to do in gym class. I've never met any other schools, any other community that knows what it is. But I shared my nostalgia online after talking about it with Owen, and all my Facebook friends and everything are blowing up with nostalgia, remembering and reminiscing about playing pillow polo in high school. Even our old gym teacher, Miss Webb, jumped on there talking about it. So
Oh, that's
it
fun.
was a nice community reunification.
More pillow polo. Who knew? Awesome. So I'm going to table the consent agenda item number 4 because there are some updates that need to be made to those minutes, but that'll happen for next month. If you have other edits beyond who made motions and approved things, please speak up. And I don't believe we have a student representative report this evening because she's playing basketball.
Correct.
So we get to move straight into the juicy stuff and the presentation on curriculum.
Right. Whoops, yeah, that's the end. Let's go back to the beginning. There we go. All right, so this month's deep dive, and I apologize for the very quick preview there, is about our reviewing our core curriculum in Hatfield Public Schools. So pre-K through up through 12. So curriculum is it's one of the many important components of education. So along with having trained professionals, that are utilizing the best instructional methods and most up-to-date methodology, and all the other pieces you see here, curriculum is one more piece that makes sure that we are delivering appropriate and rigorous education to all of our students. So Molly, Melissa, I don't know if one of you would like to talk about the ropes of ELA.
Either way, either direction.
The ropes for ELA, Scarborough's reading rope is kind of the can't speak there. An amazing visual that allows us to understand the phonological awareness, decoding, and alphabetic principles besides sight vocabulary and sight recognition that then becomes intertwined with background knowledge, vocabulary, language, and verbal reasoning and literacy knowledge to actually really truly show what and how many of those components occur for students to understand how to read. The similar Sedita's writing rope, again, those strands of critical thinking, syntax, text structure, writing craft, and transcription skills, again, are all of those are together intertwined in the process of how students understand and learn how to write. So in the elementary, we have for the pre-K, K, and 1 students, we are using Hegarty, which is a phonological awareness. This is not a paper thing. Their students are not reading anything. It literally is just oral practice. In foundations, we are using that for phonics, spelling, and writing, and we use that for both kindergarten, first, second, and third grade. This was a slow rollout. We had brought that initially in, Dr. Driscoll had brought that to K and 1, and then when I started, we were going to do 2, but that was the same year that we started with the math curriculum. So we tabled that for that 1 year, and then this past year, second and third grade teachers were both trained in the fall, and they have been implementing the foundations curriculum to their students. 4th, 5th, and 6th were requesting Wordly Wise. That was an endeavor when I was meeting with them around how to better support them. Foundations goes to grade 3, and then after that, there really wasn't anything else for them to be kind of sinking their teeth into and kind of progressing with them. So we looked at 3 different other curriculums, and they agreed that Wordly Wise was the one that they felt was the most rigorous, that they wanted students to be engaged with. So all 3 of those grades are using that vocabulary. Making Meaning, before I started, was it's a program in which our teachers were utilizing it in the upper grades primarily. The reading interventionists had purchased the curriculum mostly for the tier 1 for reading comprehension strategies. And then it was like, again, a slow, gradual. They started with 6 and they began working backwards. But at this point, K1 and 2 do not have that. So they're utilizing more of just the standards. They're not an actual curriculum to use. And then we use the SRSD, the self-regulated strategy development for writing. And we're doing that in grades 1 through 6. And then iReady Reading utilizes all phonics on phonemic awareness, but mostly vocabulary fiction and nonfiction. And then we're targeting that specifically to grade 6 because the middle school is also using it, and we wanted to utilize that for 6th grade as well.
These are some of the additional ELA reading resources that we use, and we noted which tiers. And the important thing about these pieces are the adaptability to be very individualized to students. Even when it's used in tier 1, it's still individualized. So we have Lexia Core 5, which is an online platform, which has diagnostic entry and all the time progress monitoring. We use 2 different Linda Mood Bell products with some of our students. One is visualizing and verbalizing, which helps with comprehension and supporting kids picture what they're reading. And then the LIPS program is a program that helps meld articulation with phonological awareness and letter sounds. So having kids, it really focuses on touch cues and where in their mouth they make those sounds. And our speech pathologist has connected that to the foundations cards that are used in tier 1, so that our students who may receive speech for our speech services at tier 3, they are able to practice these lip strategies in their class as well in small groups. And then we use the UFly curriculum. So this is the piece where we apply the Orton-Gillingham methodology with a curriculum. And so this is used by our reading interventionists and our special education teachers. And this is in public domain. So it's available and being used across the country. And then we do have language for learning, which is vocabulary. It really helps with some students who need to, like Melissa said, one of the strains is that background knowledge. So thinking about adding a little bit of vocabulary, making connections with categories and groups of words that have some commonality. And then we have Framing Your Thoughts, which is a writing curriculum. And we onboarded the sentence level of this last year, and we were going to do the paragraph level this year, and it got bought out by Hegarty. And so we actually couldn't buy it. So we are looking at, Hegarty is using that Framing Your Thoughts and their own thinking, and they'll be doing their own new writing curriculum. So we're excited to look at that. Kelsey Brunel, one of our special ed teachers, has looked at the new curriculum that they're rolling out related to having absorbed Framing Your Thoughts.
And before I dive into ELA and reading at Smith Academy, if we have any members joining us from home who are unmuted, if you could, I think I see one person who's joined by phone. We're getting some feedback on our end from you, and I can't remotely mute you. So if you're able to, please mute. Thank you. So Smith Academy, once students get into 7th grade and up into high school, we start to see a transition from, into more kind of what might be considered more traditional literature approaches. So primarily we have novel-based units for literature. We have anthologies that are also used for other kinds of literature. So things like poems or short stories when there are units that involve those. Vocabulary is all based around those units that have been developed by teachers. And I should mention here that teachers have had pretty extensive training in unit design following UBD methods and aligning to the standards. So all of the units and the lessons that are taught within those units align to the curriculum, the Massachusetts curriculum frameworks. And that training is ongoing. It continues now, and it had happened quite a bit before I joined as well. So there's continual training on those approaches. Collaborative writing rubrics have been developed from 7th through 12th grade. So there's been vertical alignment of those rubrics. So as students finish up at the elementary school and they bring their SRSD expertise with them, they continue that work. And when they go from one grade to the next, there's not it's not a surprise. They don't have to learn a new kind of writing. As they get into high school, students are the literature that's taught has kind of different kinds of focus areas. So 9th grade is looking through a whole variety of literature. 10th grade is really looking into literature where there's character development throughout different types of stories and different types of literature, whether it be memoir or fiction or nonfiction experience. 11th grade is focused on American literature, and 12th grade is world literature. There are also plenty of electives. There's AP English Literature, which is offered to students in their junior year. Although we have had seniors who have also taken it, they've kind of switched up that way too. We also offer journalism and media production for our students who are interested in journalism. So next we're going to go into math. You can see here sort of the different the different areas where DESE has created what in their mind is a rigorous mathematical framework. So we different methodologies and applying different concepts in more organic ways has really taken center stage in math. You might have heard it referred to as new math, but really it's an approach in which students conceptualize their learning of math prior to their algorithmic knowledge of math. So learning why things happen rather than just, oh yeah, you carry the one, and not having an understanding of why that one is carried. And that's been rolled out over the last several years, and we're starting to see those results.
So I'm just giving you a quick overview of our fall and winter iReady. So again, this is our second year of implementation of using the program and curriculum. The diagnostic then puts a student on a trajectory of independent practice, where the company states that at least 40 minutes a week is what is the aim for any student who is needing additional support or practice. So in the fall, as you can see, we had, do I need to do my math real quick? 36 students who were in the green, which was at or above grade level. 100 of our students were in the area where they needed to be, because when we were first using this program, we were looking at targeting students in the yellow for intervention. figuring that that's what they needed, was that little bit like extra boost to get them into the green. But actually, that is what our teachers are needing to do. If they're in the class doing their tier 1 instruction, they are ready for that. A lot of these things are being covered over that year, and it's expected to be a year's growth. So it's the students in the red who are targeted. And I'm happy to say that in the beginning of the school year, we really literally only had 38 students who were showing any kind of significant 2 or more years below grade level. And then come winter, that number in the red has shrunk to only 19 students needing being 2 or more years below grade level, and a much higher percentage of our students, 68 of them, now at or above grade level. And then we still have those students in the yellow, because again, this is still part of what is expected to be covered. So there are certain grades in classrooms where geometry hasn't been covered yet. So
I just want to ask to just double down,
Yeah.
clarify that. So right now, if there's a student who's not at grade level, it's because they haven't finished that grade,
correct.
right? So they're not behind,
Correct.
they're just on track.
Correct.
Okay.
So they mean on grade level is like at
The-
at the end of the year.
Yes. So there are students who are definitely more adept at math. They're more, so that's a bit more with that green and the green with the slashes, where we're saying that we actually have students even above that. But yes, if a student is in the yellow, it is not an indication that they are below grade level. I know that unfortunately it does say the word below, but that really is they're in the classroom getting the instruction that they need. And that's not to say that, we definitely do have students right now in math intervention, just based on looking at data that are, because again, we have students who are in the red, but then we have kids who are in yellow, but they're close to that red area because it's done by numbers. So we have been targeting some of those students who are close or bottom portion of that yellow, just to see if we can give them a little extra to ensure that they're not slipping into that red by the end of the school year.
I'm just curious if you have an early learner, so if you have like a K1 student who could not really be 2 or more grade levels before, how would they calculate into these overall placement scores?
They're going to actually stay in the yellow. So we don't have any students right now in K or 1 who are in the red, and that's part of that reason why, because they can't be 2 years below, right? So our students in kindergarten and 1 are either in yellow or green.
So is this not a viable tool for the younger learners to identify who's struggling to move forward, or you can just you just kind of monitor the progress along the yellow throughout the year?
Well, yes and no. Because remember, this is a benchmark, so this is only done 3 times a year. After each, there's a certain amount of a unit that's taught, and then there's assessments. So teachers are always doing formative or more summative assessments based on the content that they're teaching. So that pulls into play as well. So students who are doing really well on those, and that even happens in some of the upper grades, our students are doing really well on some of the tests, but then might not do so well on the diagnostic, which is why, again, it's a data point, but it's still helpful to be able to kind of get a bigger picture of how the student is doing.
And for special education, I live on the iReady site when I'm preparing for meetings, because there's so many different data displays I can go into. And so this is, like Melissa said, this is the diagnostic. Some of the other areas that we look at are the distribution of skill across those 4 domains. So the numbers and operations, algebraic thinking, data and statistics and geometry. And so, we may have a student who's super duper green for numbers and operations, but red for geometry, because that was always what got hit in May and June. And, we're coming back from COVID. So their overall may land in the yellow, but that isn't really helpful to us when we're trying to target instruction. So teachers are able to go to a much deeper level than this presentation that you folks are seeing. And the other thing is we can look at their MyPath, which is their individualized lessons that are assigned by the teacher or the interventionist. And so we can see, we haven't really been targeting, say, geometry on their MyPath. Everything else is caught up now. Even though the class hasn't gotten to geometry, we're going to start them on the MyPath and geometry so they're ready to onboard with the class. So we're able to manipulate really into the minutia within this program, which is helpful. So it's great that we can see this overview, but we use it in a much deeper way to inform our practice.
At Smith Academy, we continue with iReady in math through 7th and 8th grade. iReady, we use the ELA diagnostic, or not diagnostic, the benchmark assessment, but we don't use the ELA curriculum in 7th and 8th grade. And then we start to get into high school where students have choices and in consultation with the guidance counselor as well as their teachers, they start to make decisions about what the best kind of path is for them. And it's not, it's not a, you have to do this path or not, but it's a question based on skills that they have demonstrated already and logical next steps where they would need to improve. So 9th grade, all students have geometry. 10th grade is either Algebra 2 or Intermediate Algebra 2. And that's dependent primarily on, in 8th grade, most students get Algebra 1. In their performance in 8th and 9th grade, they might be a candidate for either Algebra 2 or Intermediate Algebra. Those in Intermediate Algebra will take Algebra 2 in 11th grade. They could choose to take pre-calc in 11th grade as well. We also have 11th graders who take financial literacy and or statistics as well. So once you get into 11th and 12th grade, you sort of, there's a lot of different options. And then 12th grade, we start to see AP calculus or calculus, statistics, as well as financial literacy. A new elective we'll be offering next year, which is pretty exciting, is a data science elective, which is sort of like, it's kind of like statistics on like the statistics of Spotify, I guess is how it's been described, is where they look at how data is collected, how data is used, and the math behind that data and algorithms that are used on things like social media sites or other other applications for those statistics.
Couple other resources that we use. We do have touch math. It's used very infrequently. We have 2 or 3 students who access it right now. And this is a tactile presentation of numbers. So there's a pattern that is taught to students so that they can tap out on each number to 9, literally how many, so if it's a 9, they tap out 9 little dots. And it goes through money and all the operations as well. So we do have access to that. And then our 4 through 6 special education teacher uses math recovery with some of her students. But a lot of the specialized math that's provided is more targeted and specialized instructional methodology using the math curriculum that exists, because math is numbers. So it's a lot of changing instructional methods around that.
So next we'll head into science. So you can see the foundation, science foundation from DESE here. The emphasis on the different standards as well as what that means for curriculum and instruction.
So at the elementary level, we use mystery science for our K-5 students. Sometimes our teachers are implementing these lessons, and sometimes our STEAM teacher is. In kindergarten, they also use the Scholastic News Let's Find Out. First grade also has an Exploring Science from National Geographic textbook, and also does a lot of self-created lessons. Second grade, a lot of teacher-created lessons. 3rd through 5th has an Exploring Science by National Geographic book as well. And 6th grade, coupled with the middle school, has the iScience from McGraw-Hill. Megan Bailey uses the physical science textbook, and then there are other textbooks that the middle school uses, but she specifically uses the one for physical science.
And then at Smith Academy, in 7th grade, we have life science, and in 8th grade, we have earth science, and you can see some of the resources that are used there. And we shifted recently in the last couple of years what we do in 9th and 10th grade. So in 9th grade, biology is required. So all students district-wide get biology. In 10th grade, chemistry is required, so all students district-wide get chemistry. So that way, at a base, we know that all students who have graduated from Smith Academy have a foundation in both life science and physical sciences. And then from then, they, to graduate, you are required to have 3 years of lab sciences. And so we start to get into our electives of AP Bio, AP Chemistry, AP Environmental Science, Earth and Space Science, Anatomy, and Forensics, forensics will be offered next year. So we have, we've quite a lot of elective paths for students who are interested in science, and we've seen that a lot of our students are and continue to be interested in not just science classes at Smith Academy, but pursuing careers and college pathways in science when they graduate. And I should mention before we go to the next slide, one thing that I didn't include, we were just going with the 4 kind of core curriculum areas, but one of our core areas at Smith Academy is also computer science. We have all of our students in 7th, 8th, and 9th grade take computer science pathways, and so they graduate with a skill set in coding by the kind of whether they want to or not. They have that skill set. And we've seen a lot of those students take advantage of some more of our advanced offerings in computer science as well. AP Computer Science, Tinkercad, we have students who are taking that this year. And they kind of a neat story is we had one of our 3D printers broke down, and I might have already shared this, and they printed a part to fix it with the other 3D printers. So now they're both working again. So we're developing those skill sets for college and career readiness as well, which pretty much every career has some level of computer science or coding in it at this point. Where does physics fall? Physics is an elective, and I didn't include it in here because it didn't run this year. We just didn't have we didn't have the numbers in that course to run it, primarily because we made chemistry a required course in 10th grade. But physics is an elective course that is offered. Okay. What grade level do they usually pick it up? Usually in 11th or 12th grade as an elective. In the past, there had been students who took it their freshman year as a 9th grader. We were kind of running into this issue where it was a pathway that could be pursued where students had the potential not to have any life science if they went through. And biology is a pretty fundamental science. So we made the decision to have those core core experience in biology and chemistry first, so that they could kind of specialize after that, I guess. And now we're heading into social studies and history. So as Christy mentioned before, part of the civics project is the core of what the foundation of social studies is in Massachusetts, as well as integrating literacy standards and what you see here.
So at the elementary school, we utilize Scholastic News. DESE has created some specific lessons and around social studies that some of our teachers utilize. Kindergarten uses Scholastic Reader. Let's find out. First and second grade teachers create a lot of their own lessons. They're teacher created. Third grade has the Massachusetts book, Our Home, that they utilize as well. And fourth and fifth grade also utilize teacher created lessons.
And when we get into Smith Academy, we have 7th grade is world history and culture. 8th grade is civics. And so these, there is a textbook that's used, but again, textbooks are used as a resource. They're not the curriculum. So there are all kinds of other resources that are pulled in to supplement as well. 9th and 10th grade, we follow the DESE frameworks and have U.S. History 1 and 2. And I lumped 11th and 12th grade here together because this is when we get into our kind of plethora of electives where student interest kind of guides both what they would like to do, but also what we offer. So we have ancient world history and modern world history, a real deep dive into Europe in the 20th century, specifically around the lead up to the world wars and in the period after. AP Government and Politics, U.S. History, Government and Politics. Big History, which is a course that's being offered this year, which is basically from the Big Bang on. So it's a real big history. We have Psychology and Sociology, Law, Criminal Justice, News Literacy. News Literacy is also where the civics project for the high school students is offered. So we have an 8th grade civics project where all students take part in it. We also have that yearly in the news literacy class too. So our high school our high school students, they get involved in a civic action project, and many have actually followed through to enact change locally, which is great. We have Art Through the Ages, Mythology, as well as Religion and Philosophy. So a whole plethora of electives in history.
So you have 12 electives listed. Sorry, 12 electives listed there, one of which is an AP course. How many are offered this year?
Yeah, so that's a great question because they can't all be offered every year. So we have, this year we are offering, I believe, Modern World History. We have AP US Government and Politics, Big History, Psychology and Sociology. Those are semester-based courses, so they can alternate. We're also offering Law and Criminal Justice and News Literacy, which are both, again, semester-based courses, so they alternate. And the others will be offered next year. So Art Through the Ages, Mythology, and Religion, they'll be offered next year.
So we have other curriculum that spans or targets that we wanted to include. So we have some curriculum that goes across the domains we talked about. One example is, you notice Scholastic News was repeated a couple times. That obviously the kids are also reading it. So, there's a lot that goes there. And often there's actually, in one of the questions at the end is usually like a graph or something like that. So that's a nice curriculum that pulls in various areas. We also have curriculum that targets accessibility. So the ability to be ready to learn these core academic areas. We've previously talked about social emotional learning, which is a separate deep dive. But we have executive functioning curriculum that I'll talk about in a second. And then we have some learners that, due to their complex needs, such as the learners that access our STAR program, we use the VB map to guide curriculum choices. And then in preschool, we are utilizing Teaching Strategies Gold, which aligns with all of the preschool standards. But preschool actually, I know we have all these AP courses, but preschool has the most standards than any other grade. So because it goes across like gross motor skills and things like that. And so we wanted to highlight that we use those two measurement tools to guide our curriculum in those particular populations. We also have our older learners that need targeted practice and skills acquisition related to their transition to being an adult. That's true for all of our learners, but I wanted to highlight that some of our learners need more explicit instruction in that area. And as I said, the executive functioning and also academic review is offered in our skills class. So some of the examples of those supplementary curriculum, we have life-centered education, which is through the Center for Exceptional Children, and that's for skills, which runs grades 7 through 12 and targets things like self-help, self-awareness, but also transition things like career readiness skills and those kind of things. We have the cadre self-determination course, and so that helps prepare students who are transitioning to have a better sense of self and ability to advocate for themselves. We also have the Teen Practical Life Skills text and academic vocabulary to help build that background knowledge, because sometimes when students receive specialized instruction on decoding or fluency for their early years, they end up missing key background knowledge vocabulary. And so then we have to play catch up when they're a bit older. in order to gain that vocabulary. So we have supplementary materials there. And we have a lower level life skills program outside of the life skills program, which is the social emotional piece. I included several of the executive function workbooks that we use in the skills program. We have the Frog Street Threes, which is a curriculum for preschool. The STAR program uses News to You, which it's news story based, and it comes in 3 different reading levels, which at the beginning reading level, there's an icon for every word so that it's very picture based, all the way up to sort of the paragraph level. And that curriculum comes with a wide variety of materials. Every single lesson comes with about 90 potential activities with it, which include math, reading, science, there's experiments, there's art projects, all connected to that news story. So the STAR program uses that. And then they have an ABA-based curriculum that they also use in the STAR program.
So the last thing we wanted to do is just sort of give a few snapshots about how we compare against the state. So as we've been talking about, we provide a wide array of educational experiences, opportunities for our students. We're really fortunate that our community has continued to support arts. We didn't talk about that as our, in the core curriculum courses, but they're a critical part of what we're able to offer to our students. We are able to offer a wide variety of AP courses and advanced coursework up at Smith Academy, including another thing we didn't mention because it's not a core curriculum component, but dual enrollment, which we have with many local community colleges and universities. And the MES core, the course requirements for graduation are kind of what we hold ourselves to, and we're able to complete that. So you can see this is percentage of students who take arts courses, how we stack up in our district versus Massachusetts.
This is fresh off the presses last week.
Yeah.
So
Thank you for this, by the way.
Is this, sorry to interrupt,
Mhm.
like every year or in high school one time, or do we know?
So this is
This is-
for all enrolled. This is of the total of, it would be K through 12, not
District.
pre-K, but yes.
The district
Yep.
who is taking art right now?
Well, in those years, you can see it going
So
up.
like,
So last year, 92.5% of our students
Mhm.
took art versus in Massachusetts, 81.7.
Okay.
Took arts, which also
Arts,
includes
music.
band and music as well.
Arts.
Yeah.
Okay.
And this is comparing apples to apples. Like it's our district is K through 12, and the Massachusetts is K through 12 as well. Okay.
And you can see how our district does in terms of participation in digital literacy and computer science. This is one that we actually received a commendation from the state on recently in terms of having the number of students that we have enrolled in taking computer science courses. So again, you can see we have, compared to the state, again, high numbers. This is enrollment in advanced courses. Do you know if this included dual enrollment courses as well, or?
I am unsure.
Okay.
This is how it was phrased in 11th and 12th. I'm not sure if through state reporting we report on dual enrollment. I'm
Yeah,
guessing it's
I don't
just
think
AP.
So you can see the number of students that we had in the percentage, sorry, not the number of students that we had enrolled in AP courses. So 79% of our students, high school students who are able to, took AP courses. And then this is again what we talked about with the meeting those mass core standards, which the state recommends as graduation standards, as rigorous graduation standards for Massachusetts. And we've hit that every year. There we go. And that is,
Awesome. Thank you.
you got it.
I'm assuming there are probably some questions that we didn't hit along the way. So I want to open it up.
I have a quick and easy one, Connor. In 12th grade, they have an option for financial literacy, calc or AP calc or stats.
Mhm.
If financial literacy is a wonderful class, and I wish
Yep.
I would like everyone to have the opportunity to take it, but I don't. If does taking that mean they can't take calc, or can they hit both?
They could hit both, yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, they're offered at different times.
Other questions?
I'm just wondering, so we just completed benchmark data for reading. Will we be getting updated reading data as well?
Yes, we have
ELA
not,
data?
we haven't quite finished at Smith Academy. The benchmark assessments take quite a while. And so we have most of our kids finished. We have about 30% that are about 70% done. In both the ELA and math.
So I have a few questions. I don't want to jump ahead of line. So I think one of the curiosities from those that watch our district, which is so small, is how we keep up with things in curriculum when our district isn't large enough to have someone on staff that is devoted to curriculum, which a larger district would. So can you guys share with us, how do we keep up with insights and learning that impact curriculum? I get math is math, but there was at one point new math because we figured out there was a better way to teach math. Certainly reading has a lot of conversation about how we teach reading. So can you speak to how the district keeps up and abreast of insights on that front?
Sure.
Anybody that wants to take that can take that.
A lot of times it's our staff. I mean, there's so many people are they're lifelong learners. They're collaborating and talking with other colleagues outside of our school. And that's part of how Hegarty and Foundations, I think, possibly even came about being. When people are hearing that there might be a program out there that works really well, or someone has tried, that's a lot of what begins conversations about us getting more involved with those and or investigating them. It has been tricky. I mean, it really does rely on us to try to be looking at data to try to determine where our professional development needs to be then happening to support students and support teachers in their pedagogy for those things. But ultimately, it's the dedication of our teachers of being lifelong learners that end up having these great conversations, and people start saying, hey, I've heard about this, or I'm talking to this colleague and their school district is doing this, and I wonder if we can be doing this. So that's a lot of what begins those conversations and what ends up sometimes inevitably bringing programs to us.
So what does the process look like when we decide to make a change in curriculum?
So I can speak again to the fact that, I mean, when we're thinking about a big purchase like that and a big change, we definitely want to have stakeholders involved. So we put that out to teachers to form committees to begin then having those conversations about looking at programs and getting samples and kind of whittling down, trying to come up with a process about what is the things that curriculum really needs for us, and then being able to put forth a recommendation to the superintendent for purchase.
And I think we're really fortunate in that our teachers don't shy away from looking at data that might not paint a rosy picture all the time. I can speak from both my time at the elementary school, but now at the high school as well, where when we start to see data that isn't looking where we think it should, our teachers are open to kind of looking through that and seeing, okay, what are the reasons for that and what might some solutions be? If we think about the I-rated curriculum we have now in math, that followed the process that Melissa outlined. But a big part of that process was looking at the data where, our math data for a number of years had been not where we wanted it to be. And so that's a starting point for those conversations. And then we can rely on the professional judgment of our teachers and their professionalism to help kind of get things where they need to be. The other piece of that too is that because we are so small, and I think especially at the secondary level, I see this a lot, is that the idea of teachers having autonomy for kind of how they would like to teach, as long as they are hitting the marks that we want them to hit, exists, and that takes the form of hey, I really think this is a great new novel, and I would love to create a unit about this and incorporate this into classes. And looking at that unit design, it takes the form of the class we're offering next year, which is a data science course, where we have a teacher who was trained in this course, had offered it sort of a passion of hers, and we can see that it would be a really great fit for our school. We're connected with surrounding districts, both in terms of training days that we share, and also it's a small geographic area, so we can say, hey, we know someone's over at Frontier, and this is a course that they offer. This is a data science course that they offer. We could really easily offer that here and give that opportunity for our students. So there's a lot that's to be said for that piece as well.
And I think we're very fortunate to be in Massachusetts, because DESE does provide a lot of guidance and a lot of opportunities. It's a matter of seeking it out. So, as administrators, we get monthly commissioner updates, and each of us in our respective roles get other updates on different listservs we're on. So I'm thinking about, I just got something for early childhood that they're looking at teaching early childhood teachers how to teach civics, and they're looking for teacher leaders. So I shared it with Kevin Wall, because he's our civics person. So it's a lot of like that level of networking and exploring what exists there. But I do think from an administrative standpoint, our counterparts in other districts don't do what we do, or put the number of hours into curriculum that all three of us do. And so we're able to, just with how we design our days and our workflow. But there's a lot more around curriculum that we do in our roles than in other places.
Do we encounter a lot of inertia or reluctance to change when it comes to switching from what I'm going to call classic math, which was basically just like memorization of tables and then application, to new math, or changing reading curriculums or anything? Do teachers kind of or faculty ever kind of drag their feet, like this is the way I know, and I feel like it's always worked for me, or are they usually pretty open and eager to try something new if it might work out better?
The experience that I've had is that they have been, usually they're the ones who are asking for that change. I can say that it was the first grade teachers that were like, we need to get Hegarty. I'm hearing this amazing thing, and our reading interventions were like, oh my gosh, if they're willing, we should definitely be doing this. So I think a majority of our staff is completely on board, because like Connor was saying, they're lifelong learners. They're looking at data. They're like asking questions like, why isn't this happening the way it should be? Maybe we need to be thinking about implementing or bringing in something else. So I think most of the time they're quite open to it. And I think being part of the process, the iReady math, they were very open to, partly because it was their colleagues. There was 3 or 4 people, at least at the elementary level, and a few at the high school, that were all part of that committee that looked at the different math programs to be able to say, this is the one that we think is going to be the best. It's not as language heavy. It's not as, it's not as fancy and cutesy. So all the different parts that they felt like were the most important hit that particular curriculum. So once we kind of laid it out, they were willing to trust their colleagues, because it was a community effort.
And I think it's worth saying too that part of the reason that I think we have so many of our staff and teachers so willing to do that is because of the level of success they've met with historically. I mean, Hatfield has a reputation of strong academics, and so we have a group of teachers that are, they're used to performing highly, and they're used to their students performing highly. And so if there's ever something that says, hey, this is, I'm seeing a change here, I think it makes sense that they're the ones that they're the first ones to see it. So they often are the ones to bring it to our attention. Hey, something's not working here. So we have to kind of triage it and fix it.
Is there something else?
I had a follow-up question. So with looking at the social studies and the science curriculum and talking about the teachers having autonomy over creating their lessons. So there are different grade levels where it says teacher created lessons. So is that like teachers are going to grade level standards and then they're developing a sequence, and then are the teachers, if you have at the elementary school multiple teachers per grade, are they then like using some PD time to collaborate together, and how consistent between teachers within the same grade level and from year to year have we been given that structure?
Yeah, I mean, both teachers work really collaboratively with each other, and a lot of them are utilizing Teachers Pay Teachers and actually getting the units and the lessons and sharing those. So yes, that's the teacher created materials are just that. They are usually purchased from someone who's already done this particular science unit on magnets, and then the two of them are sharing it and doing it together. So they might not be doing it collaboratively, meaning they're getting the two classrooms together to do that science unit or lesson, but they share the lesson once they've finished it.
And you can expect that the science, at the end of the year, the science experience that one grade one class has had, the other has more or less had that same experience.
Yes, should, yes.
Which also means we only purchased one set of curriculum. Like we only made the purchase once. We weren't buying two different things for two different classrooms. They're sharing, they're planning.
Well, and they're probably paying for it too.
Yeah.
Well, I signed some warrants on that. I think we're paying for it. So, okay. I think that was on, Jen, you had some stuff that was on my list, cross some of that off. My last thing was, how are we doing at making sure, and I think this is particularly Smith Academy focused, that students and families know about the curriculum? So how well informed are families about all that's offered?
I think we can always do a better job of informing everyone about what's offered. So part of the way that we do that, primarily for students, is we started this last year and we're going to continue doing it yearly, is we have a selection day where students go through their day, and part of each class, so they say they have a math class, is they talk with the math teacher about what the options are for next year, what each class is, what they can get out of it. And then there's a mini conference with every student where they say, this is how you've been doing this year. I really think that, given what you want to do, you'd be a great candidate for AP Calc, or, which, so they get a kind of a recommendation of which class they should go to. That also goes to the guidance counselor, and then students make their selections. We publish our course catalog about what we offer. We send that home to families. Each class has a syllabus that they're given at the beginning of the year as well, similar to what like a college class. So they would get a course syllabus that has all the trajectory of the year. And so that's shared with every student at the beginning of the year as well. But again, I think, there's always more we can do to communicate what we offer. But at least from this, at least the students will know about everything that's offered and have those conversations with each of their teachers.
For the 1 year ahead.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
So just to share an insight from today, we might look for a way that we share the entire 9th through 12th experience with
Sure.
our 8th graders.
Sure.
Who I had some who were pretty go-getting kids who were didn't have any clue about dual enrollment.
Okay.
And so it's this is a good time for them to learn about,
Yep.
even though they're not going to be taking AP anything next year necessarily. I mean, I guess they could
Yep.
take AP Bio, but
We do offer, every year we have a meeting with the 8th grade, similar to what, where we are required to have like Smith Vote come in and do a presentation about their school. We do the same thing with the 8th graders at our own school too. That hasn't happened yet this year, but it will be
Okay.
happening soon.
That's good to know.
And so we actually have students come speak to their experience, as well as teachers who are, across disciplines, come to talk about the offerings that we have.
When would that happen?
It's, I believe it may be happening next week. Or no, not this week. Sorry. Still on last week time.
And how do parents find out?
We'll send a notice home that's happening.
I'm just
Yeah.
thinking before families are
Yeah.
shopping for school choice options.
Yeah. Right now is about the time where we start to see that happening. So yeah, we typically do that in February. We also hold our open house for prospective students, including 5th and 6th grade students who would like to come see what it's about, around the same time. Yeah.
The course catalog, it's sent home as like a physical thing, not just like, look online.
We've sent home, we've sent the online version home. We haven't printed out the whole thing to send home, but we could.
It might just be, get something physical in their hands
Yeah.
that they actually look through. And I forget that a good description of each course is
Yep.
listed there. And
Yeah.
just, it seems like an odd situation to be trying to sell your own community on the school it already has, but
Yep.
it's looking at people already have access to without any
Yeah.
extra effort. So
Yeah.
And not, I mean, if last year was any evidence, not a necessarily great comprehension of all that's out there.
oh, definitely.
I mean, I just remember watching 3 of you looking through that course catalog going, they teach what now? And if it's new to you, it's going to be new to other parents. So I'm still struck on like, we get that much into like this
Well,
amount of staff. It's pretty
And this
amazing.
is the time where we're updating for next year as well. So, I mean, it's perfect timing. So once we've updated with those new course descriptions, we'll be able to get that home to everyone.
Awesome.
I would maybe too just like to pitch again the idea. I don't know if it's most appropriate under curriculum update or under the district improvement plan, but it does still, every time we go through everything, a lot of new curriculum, a lot of curriculum, a lot of great opportunities, and just having kind of a more detailed or specific like way that we can look at, here's our new curriculum, here's our staff, here's the professional development that's occurred at what times, here is the staff that have received that.
I think you have an update on that you could give on the PD tracking.
Oh, yes, I do.
That might be
Yeah. So, and that's, this is, I think we updated either last meeting or the meeting before to about our anticipation of doing the shift to vector solutions. I know Molly had worked with Michael on this quite a bit, to give us a platform to better track all that's done. So where we as a district can say, yep, we've offered this professional development, these people took part in it, and we know that. And individuals can say, yep, yeah, I spent my November release day doing X, Y, and Z with the collaborative at this place, and that can all live in that same document. Right now, we don't have a good way of tracking it, but that shift to a platform that we already use for evaluations will be able to dovetail very nicely with the PD tracking too.
Which then, to Jen's point, can also help you look at by curriculum.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What else do we need? Where are our PD gaps? If these are our goals and we have, we have not done professional development around it, then we would need to do that. Absolutely.
And a lot of not all, but a lot of the curriculum, professional development is on the self-selected half days, related to how the contract is. So the teachers identify themselves and explore, practice, or prepare things related to the curriculum. So like our last half day, a bunch of folks were doing the next SRSD opinion prompt They were working on that together. So, and we have no way other than that one document for that one date to look at that. We can't pull up, John Doe teacher has done SRSD 6 half days. We have no way to do that. So this platform will allow us to do that.
So when will that be implemented?
We're switching over for this summer. Like it's going to be a significant amount of office work. So that's one of our big summer projects.
So people's back stuff gets inputted into the system, or it just starts fresh now?
I hope we could get their back stuff in there. I'm not sure yet. We have to.
I think they'll be able to add their back stuff.
Right.
So of their own accord, we could look at, particularly because we're going to need to practice using it. If we, some key big things that we've done this year, we might be able to put on as part of our onboarding just to see how that works. But they did say that once you're on, you'll be able to, it doesn't matter when you started, you'll be able to date back your information. So.
And is there someone that the teachers would like submit to on a half day PD day? Like this is, this is what I intend to use this time to do, and then there's some kind of like approval system.
Yes.
Yeah, it goes to the principals.
Well, that was a helpful update. Thank you for the work on the curriculum update. I appreciate it. I'm going to just check in with the committee here. I know you've had a chance to read the administration reports and the district improvement plan update. Is there anyone who we can stop and have questions, and I'm going to ask the administrators if there's stuff that they want to highlight, but if you're in agreement, I'd like to keep moving, if that's okay. Anybody have something they want to make sure they highlight from those reports?
I got a really big grant.
Yeah. Why don't we hear about the grant? I almost thought that was going to be a mission moment.
Well, you guys moved on to the next one. So I was thinking that I was like, oh, I'll bring it up when I do my report. So yeah, as last month we were talking about how hard grants are to get. This grant I had applied for twice, so it's actually been posted 3 times in the last 5 years. And I had first done it last spring, and we didn't get selected for it. But again, I was able to use those materials, add to those materials, update those materials. So when it was reposted, it in a similar way, it hasn't been the exact grant, but kind of a similar grant. We were able to get it. So it was a competitive grant that we achieved, which is great. So we are happy that we will be using between now and June 30th, because that's the other amazing thing about grants sometimes is their timeline, $67,690. And so the outline for this grant included classroom materials. So teachers right now have been submitting things around flexible seating and other regulation materials that they've wanted for their classroom and just are beyond the budget to purchase. So I will be ordering a lot of things over February break related to that. The principals and nursing staff are working on giving me designs and information related to signage. So we're going to have more signage. So like right now in the Hatfield Elementary School cafeteria, there are the cafeteria expectations, behavioral expectations, but they're on paper and they're not going to last. So we want to make sure that they are in purple and in a proud Hatfield presentation, and allow consistency in all of our settings. And same with Smith Academy had some that had been printed, and we want to make sure that they are like more sturdily signed. And then we're purchasing some curriculum. And the big piece of this grant, and it was a core component, it was a have-to part of this grant, is to have a universal screener. So for social emotional needs. So we've talked about before, we've had the CELIS data, we've had the vocal data, we've had these we have the spiffy data. We have pieces of social emotional data, but it's not across all grade levels. We have different pieces that go in different depths. So we're going to have a quick, easy to use universal screener that is data oriented. It's one that I have experience with before, as well as our counseling staff, and it's one that is the one of the most recommended ones. So we'll be pulling that in. We also are pulling in staff to do some on-site coaching across the buildings, and we'll be providing stipends to our own staff to attend PLCs and after-hours work. So really helpful to jumpstart all the hard work that's been going on. So it really pulls in a faster timeline for us, which is great.
That's awesome. The universal screener, will that cover pre-K and kindergartners?
Yep.
I thank you for doing the grant. It's I think it is a testament to the work that you put in on it. It's not easy for Hatfield to get a competitive grant. We fall in that fun in between of we're small but not quite rural enough, according to the metrics that they use to determine that. We are, we have a free and reduced lunch population that doesn't quite meet the threshold year after year. We're kind of in that.
We're high performing.
Yeah, we're high performing. So we don't qualify for those. So to get a competitive grant for our district is pretty big.
Yeah, and I want to thank Emily Anderson and Nicola Fleur and Jean Hobby and Kim Tran. They all helped, in their own pieces. I was able to pull their pieces in under this. So,
I just had a quick question, and also amazing. Wow, it's a lot of money, and it sounds like a really great grant. And I've worked with grants, and they're really hard. So thank you for all of your work. You said that the grant needs to be allotted by June
yes.
30th. So I'm looking at some of this like professional development, staff development stuff. Do those things need to occur before June?
It does.
We can't just like allot the money.
We are hustling our bustle.
Okay. People need to actually attend.
Yes, and but thankfully there's stipend money to do so beyond the school day, so I've reached out to the union around how I was how I think this process will go, and Desi apologized a bunch that they had not told people that we had gotten it. So we've known for a couple weeks, but even just getting the final letter, which then releases that money, it was 3 weeks after we knew, and it was like, we have to spend it though. So February break is going to be very busy in getting lots of things spent and ready and organized. So,
is it available to cover costs for things that we have purchased or lined up to purchase this year that would fall under that grant?
So a piece of particularly the professional development side of it, I think there are some pieces, so we might be moving some things around, but it's going to be February break work. So because we definitely have spent money on these things, so it can't supplant like we've talked about, but if it aligns with our current efforts, we may make some changes to make sure that works out, and whether or not that makes things a little lighter on other lines. We're definitely aware of those pieces. So a lot of February work.
Other questions for administration on various reports?
Just on the subject of grants, Green School Works. I'm going to ask every month just for fun.
Can you say that again?
Green School Works.
Nothing that I've heard of since last check-in.
Is the company that Mr. Wood was working with to get set up for applying for the grant? Are you in touch with them? And
Yeah, they're still. We're still waiting.
Okay.
They're waiting too.
All right.
Keep asking.
They're watching like a hawk, as the roofers, I bet.
I just have a quick question, and I actually didn't see it in anyone's reports, but I feel like Adam, like I want to ask just like every month, are we going to be able to get payments for things like aftercare online?
Yes. So
Is there an
this-
update?
Yeah, there is.
It's every
So-
month.
So this week we got our, or sorry, I keep saying this week. Last week we got our letter from the bank. We have 3 accounts in the bank that we need the numbers for, and we got in touch with My School Bucks. They, after going through everything, they needed to have their account manager, our account manager from My School Bucks, approve it. So have been waiting with bated breath for their call to approve it. So it should happen soon. As soon as those accounts are linked and we create the product on the My School Bucks website, we should be good to go. But I can't create those products right now without linking them to an account that has yet to be approved. That's
Fine.
where we are. But it should happen soon.
It totally makes sense. I'm just really excited about it.
I twisted an arm of a computer programmer
Oh yeah.
to
Thank you.
write a little script so that on our website we could have something that would calculate your payments depending on which days you were.
Amazing.
So
It's pretty cool.
more coming.
Excellent.
Any update on pre-K box for pre-K box and aftercare?
Yeah, that was.
Yeah, that's still a work in progress. I've not had any staff members interested and still need to see if that's something that I can get off the ground for next year.
Or half days for aftercare.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah.
I need to follow up again. I had a conversation with the Hampshire YMCA about that. I will reach back out to them.
Knowing if we had pre-K aftercare before pre-K enrollment starts is a really big deal.
Okay.
It will impact whether, I suspect it will impact whether we have 1 pre-K class or 2.
Okay.
Anybody differ in opinion on that? It's,
No, I
it's
share
not a
your-
scientific
I share
poll.
your-
It's just a
Suspicion.
big hunch.
I think the aftercare is more of a need than the more
Before.
pre.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. No offense to pre.
No,
Families,
it's still, it's still.
Yeah, I mean, if I
important,
had to
but
pick one of the two, I would
Yeah.
I would love to have aftercare for preschool.
Yes.
Certainly both, but
Yeah.
aftercare, there's more of a benefit there.
Okay. Anything else anybody wants to chime in on every month?
Just working on some of these things.
Okay. So I am letting Mr. Sullivan off the hook for making the school finance subcommittee report this month because he, not to his own fault, was not able to be with us for that meeting. So I have some quick notes for you that I've shared. The most significant is that the school bus bid meeting happened. We actually, for the first time, I've been on the school finance subcommittee for a long time. It's the first time I've ever seen us have a guest to show up for the subcommittee meeting. And so our current bus vendor came because they were our 1 bid. So the good news is we have a bid for bus services going forward. The other piece of that news is we have 1 bid and we're looking at around a 42% increase in costs. So, so next step is factoring that into fiscal 25 planning. So you will see more on that as we come back next month with FY25 budget.
Do we know if that is a across the board for other districts increase that other schools are facing? Like,
I reached
mean-
out on that and don't have, I know I did. I don't,
I haven't reached out yet, but I can and see if other schools are in the same boat.
I mean, is it like due to increased insurance costs? I mean, it's
everything
not
is
really,
up. I mean,
it's not as bad as a number of years ago when gas was $5 a gallon. So I can't really attribute it to the fuel charge, but I'm just wondering what almost doubles it.
40%, it's a hike, but it's not a double.
Well, it feels big.
It is.
I mean, you don't have the athletic transportation in there.
I'm
as
not,
well.
I'm not, yeah, I didn't capture that yet. And this, to be fair, is I didn't double check our current bus price, but I asked what the recollection was. So I think it's probably right.
Yeah.
Keep in mind the challenges we've had over finding bus drivers. So what you have to pay to have a consistent bus driver has gone up. Keep in mind vehicle costs, like just, so there's a lot of stuff I think that are hitting transport. And I'm not advocating for a 40% hike. I'm just,
You're understanding it better than I am.
I'm just looking at other things that we can point to. And it is not out of kilter with some of the individual price hikes we saw last year on other fronts, completely unrelated to transportation. So I'd like to just give a little shout out to Dr. Driscoll and Riley, who have been, I'm sure they both look serene on top of the water, but the little paddling furiously to really just make sure that we are very buttoned up for fiscal 24. And so I think we had been following up with Mr. Wood about what some of the assumptions looked like for the year, given that we, for example, didn't fill the Spanish position at HES and others. I think our expectations were that we would be further ahead of the curve because of some of those things, but given several leaves of absence, we're just not quite where we hoped we would be. And so Dr. Driscoll and Riley have untangled and sort of looked forward for the year to see what we're really looking at when it comes to salaries, which again is the majority of our school budget goes to salaries, obviously. And so we are a little ahead right now, projecting to be a little bit of ahead. We're not anywhere close to where we hoped we might be. So we're probably about a third of what we reported the last time. So we're also expecting to have sort of a deep dive and untangling into circuit breaker funds for next month as well. So I also believe we'll be looking at a number of transfers next month so that we have really good transparency about where budgets are line by line, which is going to make sure that we get through the end of the year without a big surprise. And then 25 planning continues. And so we're prepping for two paths. One that would be a 2.5% increase from town side spending, and one if we got level funded. So historically, we've asked for level services. We're given what we got last year and where we are, I think we feel like getting our fair share of a 2.5% increase, which as we know is the max you can get without another override, which is not the position anyone is looking to be in. And then sort of worst case scenario, if they held us level with what they gave us last year. And as we've talked about in previous months, we know we're going to be short on the school choice side of the equation. So we're working with that. And as we look at where there would be impacts, the general direction is to make sure that they're as far away from the classroom as possible. So if we have to make a cut, it's not in classrooms. If that makes sense. So I do think we'll be back next month with a budget.
Mhm.
When working at getting past actuals, are they like the official certified budgets, or do we have like the FY23 not certified, but we have a good idea of where it went, of how things broke down?
I'm not sure if they were.
They pulled out of Tyler.
They pulled out of Tyler. Yeah, I'm not sure what you mean by certified.
It's a term that Mr. Wood would often use, and in his
accountants
description of why it would
haven't
take so long to get an actual number from previous years.
Yeah, so the actuals that I have were printed out. They were the Tyler reported, so it was actually spent from each line from Tyler.
Okay.
I would not expect the Tyler actuals to be particularly different than the certified.
Yeah.
Okay. With that, in part of our prep, one of the things that we've been doing is just digging in and asking questions. on a host of fronts. So I just wanted to share really quickly. I'm not looking to dive in, but answer questions if you have them for sure. I did a little homework on enrollment and am looking at a history. And so DESE has, we'll pull up some slides here. DESE makes available 30 years of data on enrollment that looks at class by class. So that's the end of that deck.
Yep, let's go back to the beginning.
So we're just pulling this up. Thank you for driving.
My pleasure.
So to start this deck out, I just wanted to do a quick reminder. This is a pretty familiar slide. This isn't updated for this year at this point, but it's about the larger trend. And we've talked a lot about the shifting population. And this isn't unique to Hatfield. This is area-wide. So this, again, you can see purple is the overall enrollment, and that red trend line is the available school-age population. And so you could just see over the course of 20 years, it's not a cliff. It's just a gradual erosion of the number of kids in the district. The gray at the very bottom of that, if you'll remember, is the number of local kids who go elsewhere. You can see really steady number year in, year out. And then the gold in between those is the school choice population. So that's sort of the framework from last year. The next slide gives you a little, I know it's an eye chart, I'm going to give you highlights from it, but this is 30 years of Hatfield Public School enrollment by grade. And so as you take a look at that, I will tell you that it lets us review shifting enrollment between grades every year at every grade. It looks at the cumulative shift between kindergarten and 12th grade enrollment for 19 different years, so the classes of 06 to 24. And so you can see that if you look at those color tracks, so you'll see if we go to something like the start of 06, you can see the fiscal year off to one side and the class of, and you'll be able to track that. And the color coding in there is just to make that a little bit easier to see. So you just have to step down as you go across to keep a look at the same group of students. So for example, the class of 2006 started kindergarten in fiscal year 94. It lets us look at trends in terms of which grades where we're gaining and losing students. And I took a look at trends at the 30-year mark, the 20-year, 10-year, 5-year, and then looked at the past 2-year averages and highlighted where there are outliers. And then lastly, I also took a look at to see where we're school-wide enrollment is changing. Okay, so looking at shifts year over year for the elementary and for Smith Academy. And so next up on the next page, you're going to see this is where the averages and trends are. So kindergarten enrollment is the first number that you see over there. For 30 years, our average kindergarten enrollment is 28. This year we have 30 kindergartners. The shifts in green are where we're picking up kids. The shifts in red are where we lost kids. The obvious thing to take a look at is the shift before 9th, because there's always a loss before 9th. So for 30 years, we've lost 15% of the class going into that freshman year. As we know from previous reviews, that's primarily to VOC. And then you can see where that trend has changed over years. So the past 5 years, where we were at 30 years, we were at 15%. Then we looked at 20 years, that grew to 17%. We look at the last 10 years, that gap moved up to 22% of the class left. We look at the last 5 years, it's 32% of the class moved. And then the last 2 years in particular, that's been even greater. The other trend that's highlighted there is looking at where we're seeing a shift before 6th grade and before 7th. And so the bigger concern to me in this graph is the shift before 6th, because we used to lose a kid or two, And the last couple of years, we're losing 7 and 5. For the record, though, we lost one kid this last year before going into Smith Academy. So that changed, which is good news. When we factor out the last 2 years and we look at a decade of data, we found that our classes, so starting in kindergarten and finishing through 12th, they averaged a gain of 7 students over the course of their time at Hatfield. So I know that that is counter to some of what we hear from friends and family and the public, where the perception is, it's like, oh my gosh, you just guys are losing kids to hand over. Like, well, no. We've come out of COVID and hit some bumps, but not going back far on, we've tended to be picking up students by and large. So again, the class of 23 is an exception to that. They lost 7 kids between K through 12. 6 of those 7 moved before 9th. That was when that shift. This year's senior class is a really big exception to the standard. They lost 16 kids over the years. 8 of those, so half of that was before the freshman year. 4 more moved out before 10th grade, but they also lost 4 before they came out of kindergarten. So, I mean, it's not all happening at the tail end of their time, but obviously that freshman year is a big piece of it. As we take a look at where kindergarten enrollment is, I think, to me, kindergarten is sort of speaks to the potential of the district. The past 20 years, we've averaged 26 students in kindergarten. The current HES classes, so if we take everybody who's there K through 6 right now, and we looked at what the number of kids they had in kindergarten when they started, their average was 25. Numerically, that says to me that if we're starting with basically the same number of kids we've had for the past 2 decades, it strongly indicates that we are a financially viable population to continue moving forward. So I know there's been a lot of questions about, are we able to sustain? And so obviously we're impacted if kids choose to leave. I think I look at the data and I think a lot of it points to, I don't know, self-fulfilling prophecies potentially. So if you don't think it's going to be there, you may make that happen. But certainly if we look at the numbers of kids we have now at the levels they started in kindergarten, there's no reason why we should not be able to continue to flourish. So I know that is a lot of years of data. I'm totally happy to answer questions now or later. You have access to the data sheet, so you can go and take a look, find your grade, see who left.
And down that rabbit hole.
I kind of looked at you on purpose. But I think it's, all in all, I take it to be quite good news. I'm not saying there aren't some things we shouldn't address. In particular, the shift before 6th grade, I find concerning. And my understanding is they pretty much all left for places that had middle schools. So, is there anything else?
I'm just, wanting to highlight that since you folks voted to reopen school choice this year, we've had a number of new families join us mid-year, which wouldn't have happened without that vote. So just wanted to highlight that. And it's been one of those, these folks have had a good experience, so they told their neighbors who told their neighbors, because we are the place to be. So it's been really kind of cool and organic to watch that happen.
Yeah. And I anecdotally hear about like, oh, there's 3 new kids in my guy's grade, and they're all like, they're like a tight knit group. They like came in and they were able to kind of form their own like bond over being new. But I think some of them brought each other, which was great.
And we welcomed 2 new learners last week
Yeah.
and a half ago that moved in.
Yeah.
So that's on top of the 10 we talked about last month then.
Yeah, oh yeah, in the last month, we've had several new ones start since our last school committee meeting, so.
So the data that you guys are looking at here doesn't reflect any of that. So all of this is straight from DESE because I wanted the most apples to apples data we had.
Mhm.
And so I just pulled it all from DESE, which means it's going to reflect the October 1st. So we're in a better spot than this shows
Mhm.
on a lot of fronts because there's at least a dozen kids.
There's actually 33 in kindergarten right now. So,
That would impact our averages.
yes, absolutely.
Nice.
So
They're bigger than they've been in a long time.
Yeah.
16 and 17, so.
Great.
let's keep.
I'd be curious to learn, and this is a rabbit hole I can pursue on my own, but what other districts shift before 9 looks like. So our other districts, as Frontier, is Turner's, is Pioneer, are they seeing a shift to vocational in similar percentages that we are over the last 5 years?
I can speak anecdotally from districts where I've been, and the answer is yes. Voc schools have had kind of a resurgence in popularity, and that's reflected everywhere I've been. I don't have specific numbers on is Frontier seeing this, is Northampton, is what other districts, but I'm happy to try to get some of that data.
Yeah, I think you for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
I know I looked at that specifically for at least 2 neighboring districts, and their shifts are right in line. I can pull that up for you because I did it over a course of time.
Thank you.
So, any other? Nobody wants to go down the rabbit hole. Okay.
Thank you for that, though. That was great information.
It was answering questions I know I had. So, and answering stuff I think that we want to be able to speak to when we go present our budget. Does policy want to
Policy
speak?
would like to defer.
Defer. Okay. With that, I think we're going to move to executive session. So I'm going to, pursuant Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiating with non-union personnel, or to conduct collective bargaining sessions or contract negotiations with non-union personnel, or to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect. Is there a motion to move to executive session?
So moved.
Kathy's just proud, I thought, to call for the vote. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Oh, we need a roll call. Thank you, Becca. So Boudreaux, aye.
Engelhardt, aye.
Bench I.
Maloney, aye.
Sullivan, aye.
Thank you. Thank you, parliamentarian. So with that, we are going to go downstairs for executive session, and we do not plan to return. So thank you all.